Okay, Kyle, roll that beautiful bean footage.
How can you tell if you're the narcissist? Well, it's important to keep in mind that narcissistic traits or narcissistic behaviors are employed to protect emotional wounds, specifically to protect sadness, shame, or fears. They're meant to obscure those things and keep them at a distance. And you might think like, well, okay, how does being deliberately malicious or manipulative actually keep those emotions at bay? And it's not that complicated when you think about it. Like, let's say someone who deliberately sabotages someone's happiness just to run in and rescue them so that it creates dependence on them, so that they don't have to feel alone. They don't have to feel forgotten. Or take somebody who's like directly terrorizing someone and being malicious just to feel that surge of power in your chest, that power that creates a sense of safety and keeps the fear away. And if you look closely, if you really slow down, you might even notice some of these traits in yourself in smaller degrees. Like, have you ever said something to someone just to make them angry, just to antagonize them a little bit, so that they would blow up, so that you could feel justified and win the argument? They're the one who's being unreasonable. Ever done that intentionally before? I have. Or maybe on the other side of that, have you ever helped somebody, not because they really needed it? Like, you might even realize in the moment they'd probably be better off solving that problem themselves, but you want to step in because you like being dependent on. Because if they're depending on you, then you won't be forgotten. So how do I know if I'm the narcissist? You are. We all are. All of us in different degrees. Not all of us have personality disorders, but all of us use those traits and employ them to protect our wounds. And so our responsibility is to move towards healing and to face the things that we're trying to obscure with those strategies.
Woo!
I really loved the end of that, because I think where he's saying that narcissism is this spectrum, and be self-aware enough to notice when you might be leaning into these areas. And that doesn't mean you are a textbook DSM, hitting all the criteria to have that personality disorder. But if we're talking about narcissism as a trait that people have, I'm so glad there's conversations that are inviting the idea of self-reflection, because there's so much, you're the narcissist, no, you're the narcissist, and there's the black and white thinking about it without any pause to really assess if anyone is actually employing those qualities in having basically like interpersonal warfare with the people around them. Like, to me, that those communication examples he gave are just self-sabotaging and like bullying behavior. I feel belittled. I feel worthless. I feel I don't have a need or value. So I have to lord that. I have to create a scenario where I can feel powerful and have my ego really flex.
Yeah.
And that's the only substitute for having a sense of validation versus actually doing the work.
Yeah.
I think it's a real fear of vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard this podcast, Mel Robbins, she had like this leading expert in narcissism on, and I can't remember the ladies. I'm terrible with names. I've noticed. We're
gonna have our producer and fact checker look into that.
I think it was Dr. Becky something. Anyway, so but she said that like to be actually no, it was not Dr. Becky. I'm sorry. Anyway, she said to be like clinically diagnosed with narcissism is extremely rare, and because like people want to like, for lack of better terms, like street diagnose somebody with narcissism. So if like somebody's kind of toxic in a relationship, they just want that was a narcissist. Mm-hmm. But I mean, yeah, I think it's important to know that there's a massive gray area, like a massive spectrum. Like we all can exhibit narcissistic characteristics, but we're not actually like a clinical narcissist, Yeah.
And I think, again, I'm going to talk about so many things as if it's a spectrum, because I think there's a spectrum of how healthy we are as an individual too. So likely at our unhealthiest moments, mentally or emotionally, that's when there's going to be more weak points to probably use more narcissistic trait types of behaviors, like manipulation or the power imbalance or things for validation. In fact, some of the things he was describing when it came to like the need to be needed, I mean, that's even entering into codependency, which we don't see as being the same as narcissism. And it's not in a lot of ways. In fact, narcissists and codependents often form very symbiotic and unhealthy relationships, but the idea that I need you to help me in order to feel validated, even if it's not to your best benefit and largely to my benefit, is not a healthy way to think.
Yeah.
And can still cause a lot of very manipulative and unhealthy behaviors.
Yeah. Because I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about like a toxic relationship that I was a part of once, and there was like like almost like a mutual like addictive obsession, but in a way where it was like self-serving. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like, so for example, like me and this lady would be, I would gravitate toward her because I knew that she made me feel like really wanted and like adored, and then vice versa. So then like when we came to each other, it was like, okay, tell me everything that's great about myself, you know? And I really feel like at that, in that relationship, I was as close to narcissistic as any point in my life, you know, because I was really toxic and
yeah, that's a great example. Thank you for being vulnerable enough to share, because obviously it's something that no one's proud of that. I'm not proud
I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh, James is the anti-hero.
Yeah,
no.
it's me. I'm the problem.
And I can think back at times most definitely where like I wish I would have behaved differently. That was not coming from an internal place that was balanced, or that was practicing being kind to myself or others to the extent that I should, or having compassion. So anyways, that is my long-winded reaction.
That was great. By the way, that was like a water hose of information
that
from
was
that
good.
video. I was like,
I liked it.
I'm too tired for this.